Good morning, everybody. My name is Ian Robson, and I'm the Director of Customer Success here at Salesforce in the UK. I'm delighted to welcome you all this morning to this third webinar in our series on implementation expertise. In a few moments, I'll hand you over to our partner, Tequila, who will be presenting the main part of today's webinar. Just before I do that, I'd like to cover a couple of points. Firstly, to enable you to fully participate in this webinar series, I'd like to direct you to our online community on success.salesforce.com. If you take a moment now, you can search for and join the group. You can see the details of how to do so, relevant addresses and so on the slide in front of you now. This group is used for a variety of purposes, including communication around future webinars, providing you with details of how to register for those future webinars. It acts as a repository for all the collateral associated with this series, including webinar recordings, slide decks, and also, and importantly, it's the place where we collect and answer the questions you may want to raise during this webinar. On that, this webinar will be in listen-only mode. Q&A will be through the community, so please, if you do have questions, post them there and we'll get to them at the end of the webinar. The second thing I'd like to ask is that these webinars are really designed to help provide insight into the implementation of specific technologies and capabilities within the Salesforce ecosystem. So I'd love to hear your feedback on the content. Please feel free to contact me either directly through the community by direct message, in a public posting, or through email at irobson@salesforce.com. With that, I hope you find the webinar valuable, and we'll get started on the main content now. Thank you for joining us, and Liliana, over to you.
Thank you, Ian, and welcome everybody to our Engaging Communities webinar. So I'm Lily, and I work at Tequila, a Salesforce implementation partner, and I run the social business practice. So I work with companies, enabling them on technologies like communities, so that they can make the most of social for their businesses. And today I've got with me my colleague, Bash, who will introduce himself.
I'm Bashir Qasim. Hi, I'm Bashir. I'm a senior solutions architect with Tequila. So I work with some of our customers to help them design solutions with Force.com, with communities, and other Force.com solutions that they'll be implementing within their businesses.
Great, thanks, Bash. So without further ado, let's go into the content of today's session. So we're going to go through a little bit of context of where communities comes from and where the need is within organizations for a community. We're going to talk you through the actual product. So what does it cover? What is the functionality? What can you expect from a Salesforce community? And we've done a few implementations of communities by now. So we're going to share some of our best practice and advice on how to go about implementing a successful community. And to do this, we'll share two case studies of some of our customers. So we've got Just Giving and the Youth Business International. And at the end, we'll wrap up by sharing with you our 5 steps to building successful communities from a community management point of view. So with a view to achieving highly adopted and thriving communities. All right, so let's get started with the need for communities. And really, communities came about due to the transformation of how consumers are expecting to engage now with brands outside of the corporate world. And really, what we are right now as customers or consumers is what we can call brave new customers. Today's customer has been empowered to have lots of choices about the brands they consume with. People are very savvy. They know exactly what products they want to buy. They have several opportunities to do research on their own. They practically don't need to be sold to. And they 24/7. We often hear that people are on their mobiles. They're making choices on their mobiles. They don't necessarily have buying hours. They don't go out on Saturday to do their purchases anymore. So this then empowers us by being as well very vocal, making use of several social technologies like Facebook and Twitter, where we share with our friends and whoever wants to listen what our opinions and experiences are of the products and the brands we interact with. And this also brings expectations in terms of how we want to be dealt with. We don't want to be sold into as part of a mass of customers. The one-size-fits-all method doesn't apply anymore. We are unique customers, and we want to be treated as such. And this also ends up having huge impact on how our influence is perceived. If we're all connected with our friends and acquaintances on social media, this then allows us to influence how other people perceive brands and products out there. So all these changes that we've seen in the consumer world have also been brought into the corporate world, as brands need to accept that expectations have changed. And these changes then bring challenges to organizations who find it harder and harder to keep in touch with what customers want and need from their brands and who they are interacting with. And it's ever more difficult to keep the finger on the pulse of customers' needs, because they keep changing. People expect a constant pace of innovation, because that's how they're used to in their consumer world, outside of work and outside of the corporate world. And this then always brings challenges as well to cope with the volume of queries, because people always expect to have someone that can answer them. So we always expect to be able to find an answer to our questions. And as a result, again, of how the consumer world expectations are changing, then the satisfaction standards are getting more and more difficult to achieve. And that goes both for customers and partners as well. So how have companies been trying to deal with these changing expectations? So some companies then beef up their websites to provide more information and to help people navigate. And a lot of companies have achieved already a lot of work by enabling people to find their own answers and solutions to problems that they're having, by enabling FAQs on the website, for example, simple things like those. And on the other hand, some companies have also tried to enable what can be called as a forum. So social data, social conversations that then become very difficult to manage. And then we end up with two different experiences. So we have on the one side a very corporate approach with the organization or the company telling us what our questions should be, almost, and then we look at other people's questions. But then on the other side, we have a lot of customers talking to each other, and sometimes it's very difficult to understand what the source of truth is. And this ends up providing customers with a frustrating experience when dealing with the brands. And more often than not, people can find the answers for what they're looking for, either through the website or through these forums, and end up having felt like they've wasted their time going from one place to the other, and end up then in the end picking up the phone and asking questions to your contact center or to your organization directly, which again will incur time and costs for yourselves. So this is the scenario we've got, and how customers have, or how organizations have so far tried to solve these problems. And this is really where communities comes, is from the frustration of this customer experience with a disjointed approach from organizations to solve customer problems, and really bringing it together in one single platform for all kinds of interactions, whether it's a more social approach where someone just has a question or is looking for how another user has experienced a product or a service from that customer, or they're looking for a more business process oriented interaction where they want to actually log a formal complaint and they want to see how the organization is processing that complaint. So Salesforce Communities is built on the Salesforce platform, and it is enabled with a social layer that, as we'll see in a moment in our examples, looks very much like the Facebook or Twitter or LinkedIn interactions that we are used to from our private lives. It is available on mobile, which is obviously essential these days, that your customers or consumers or your partners as well can access your organization and the processes that you offer through mobile devices, and having a solid experience in that mobile device as well as on the desktop. Salesforce understands that it's important that you can carry your brand across each platform that you put out there that is related to your business. So they made communities very easy to be branded and customized, which is something that we'll actually look at in the examples we have for you today. And really, communities allows you to open the parts of your business, of your CRM or your contact center data that you want to put out there, and give your partners or your customers direct access to offload work from your agents or your salespeople, depending on how you would be using a platform like this. And because it's built on the Salesforce platform, you don't have to worry about maintaining any systems. It's all built in the cloud. It's secure and scalable so that you can always evolve with your community platform with feedback from your customers and building on the experiences that you are providing them with and offering. And really what communities is doing is bringing all your players together. We normally say that no man is an island, but really no business is an island either, and you don't rely solely on your employees or on your customers. It is a combination of customers, partners, an ecosystem really. And the more access, the easier it is for these people to interact with your organization, then the better you'll perform and the better they will feel about your business as well. So what we're going to do now is to go into a bit more detail on the two types of communities available, the customer and partner community. And for that, I'm going to hand over to Bash.
Hi, so today we'll be discussing the two main types of communities we'll be discussing today are partner community and customer community. Now, the partner community is really the community that you would use to interact with your partners. So this could be a number of organizations that you're working with to help sell a product. It's very strong functionality, allows you to have access to standard objects within Salesforce, such as opportunities, leads, and accounts, so that your partners can enter leads and you can track them from a lead all the way through to a closed opportunity or one opportunity. The user limit for the partner community is 300,000 partners. 300,000 users, and it gives access to reporting functionality, so your partners can go in and see their performance against your business. It allows user knowledge management, so that both the partner and the internal users within your Salesforce org can have access to edit and read knowledge. The customer community is a little bit different. Its main functionality is to allow you to create a social hub for your customers. It has less functionality than a partner community, but it does allow self-service access to things such as cases and read-only access to knowledge management. Another advantage of this is that it allows you to create a forum environment for your users to empower them to self-serve themselves, where customers can ask questions and have other customers answer those questions. So it really creates a forum and sort of a feedback loop that allows you to decide what knowledge you should be feeding to your users. It also has read-only dashboards if you would like to feed data back to your customers as well. So first, I'll be covering the customer community. So the customer community's main benefit that it increases customer satisfaction, that it helps you engage more with your customers. They really feel a part of the brand because you're not just feeding them information, but they're providing you information as well. They're providing each other information, and you can use that to decide what knowledge and what answers to feed back to your users. It also allows access to case management. So if your customers have customer service queries, they can manage them all directly through this Salesforce customer community. You end up with increased sales because you end up with customer-led recommendations. Instead of what Lily mentioned earlier, instead of just feeding your customer information, you're actually engaging with them actively, and you can see what they're looking for, what type of products they're looking for, what issues they're having, and you can respond accordingly. You end up with a deeper knowledge of your customer because you see the conversations that they're having with one another, the type of cases that they're uploading to the community, what type of questions they're answering, and what type of questions they're asking. You end up decreasing support issues and the time needed to spend on cases internally. Because your customers are actually managing those cases directly on your Salesforce community, which can be fully integrated within your website for a seamless experience. The community itself ends up providing the support to the customer, instead of customers having to call in and submit cases to you directly. So the first example of a community is a fictional company that we created called Acme. And now Acme sells widgets. I know you've probably heard of this fictional company before, but this is an example of what a customer community could look like. As you see, if you're familiar with Salesforce's interface, it doesn't have the normal Salesforce interface. It's been a custom branded interface, and it's very easy to do this from within Salesforce. But you will see some familiar tabs at the top, which is an option to implement within a customer community. So at the top, you see a few different tabs. You have the Home tab, which can be basic information. You can have dashboards or other widgets up on this home screen for your users. But they also have access to things like Chatter, their Chatter profile, the groups, the cases, the knowledge management, ideas, and Q&A. But first, we're going to be covering off what sort of Chatter looks like. So we skipped ahead a little bit. If we can go back to the Chatter tab. So on this Chatter tab, you can see that it looks familiar to the internal Chatter user interface that you would see within Salesforce, but this can also be completely customized. So on the left-hand side, I've got my profile, I've got my feed, and specifically, we're looking at the list of people here. Now, this can be a list of people that are other customers, or you can limit it to what you feel is necessary. Next, we're going to be looking at cases. So cases can show the customer a list of cases that they've recently submitted, or they can use this tab to actually create new cases as well. So this allows your customer to easily track and self-serve their cases and add their cases to the community instead of having to use other internal resources for your company, such as having a call center. So this is really useful to help cut down on costs needed to serve your customers and cases. To help empower customers to help themselves, we've got knowledge. So this is read-only knowledge for a customer community. But as I said before, since you're observing this social hub and these interactions that are happening on this social hub within the customer community, you're really creating a feedback loop that will allow you as a company to upload and serve the knowledge and deliver the knowledge that you feel is necessary based on the interactions that are happening within this customer community, instead of just telling the customers what questions they should be asking themselves. You're actually feeding them knowledge based on feedback that you've gotten from them. Again, this can be fully customized as well, but again, it creates that nice feedback loop and allows the customer to serve themselves. Next, we're going to cover Q&A. So Q&A is really sort of if you think of a forum that you would have, it allows customers to ask and answer each other's questions. So if a customer has a question about a product and it's a common question, an answer can be promoted as a common answer to be featured on the Q&A section. So for example, if I need to know how to reset my password, as I'm typing this question in, the Q&A section of the customer community can suggest answers that have already been answered. But if there's no answer for it, you can add a new question. So overall, the customer community really allows you to really create a feedback loop with your customers. One example of a fully custom community that's been implemented is a company here in the UK called JustGiving. JustGiving is a for-profit company that provides a platform that connects donors and fundraisers to charities. So it allows individuals, just like myself and you, to create a fundraising page on their website. They're operating in over 160 countries worldwide, and they have 22 million supporters that help fundraise and donate to charities. They help charities fundraise that are otherwise not easily accessible. So they make any type of charity, from a mom and pop shop to a very large charity like the Red Cross, to be able to fundraise for different events that happen. It could be a marathon, it could be a natural disaster, but it really is a company that brings donors and fundraisers together with charities. Now, JustGiving have implemented Salesforce Communities to help them to help them sign up more charities worldwide. It was initially a very long and arduous sign-up process, but Salesforce Customer Community has allowed them to speed that process up dramatically. So they're using Salesforce completely custom, this customer community completely customized to allow them to initiate the sign-up process through their website. And they're doing it through a very seamless experience, and the user doesn't know that they're going between Salesforce and back to the JustGiving website. So on the next slide, we're just going to show you sort of what that looks like. Now this is a fully custom user interface. Now you don't see any of the tabs that you would normally see, because what it's being used for is to help drive a wizard, drive customers through a wizard to help them sign up. So if we look at this, it's simply a sign-up wizard that has information before you would start the sign-up process. It walks them through all the information that they need to enter, any documents that they need to upload, any specific information about their organization is done throughout the Salesforce custom community. And what this does is allow the data to be easily entered into Salesforce directly. So the customer is entering this information directly into Salesforce, but they're doing it through the interface of a Salesforce customer community. So once they're done with this, they're allowed to, JustGiving is allowed to fully vet the charity to bring them on board. Now how this is done on the next slide is through a couple of very versatile features, including single sign-on, and both using an integration between their existing platforms and Salesforce.com communities. So this is just to convey how versatile the platform is. So users will go to JustGiving's website, they say, hey, I want to sign up, and from there, they're actually transferred directly into the Salesforce community and logged into that community without having to go through any type of additional sign-up process. This information is entered directly into Salesforce.com and also sent out to their existing architecture within their business. So if a custom community is what your business needs, the platform is extremely versatile, allows you to create solutions like this. As you can see, it was completely custom branded, but it's just an example of how versatile the platform is. So overall, customer communities allow you to really engage with your customers differently in a more interactive and social manner that you wouldn't be allowed to do before with just an existing website. It informs you as a business on what knowledge your customers are looking for and what questions you should be answering. Next, I'm going to hand it back to Lily. Actually, I've got a little bit more left to cover. So the goal of this customer community with JustGiving was to increase the charity retention, increase their customers' retention, and overall shorten the time taken to sign up for their platform. It's also empowered new charities to complete the process completely independent of internal employees, and it creates an overall better and quicker user experience so that customers are really empowered to help get themselves up and running. And this is what communities can do for your customers as well. Next, I'm going to hand it to Lily to discuss the benefits and what can be done using a partner community.
Thank you, Bash. So now we covered the customer community, but if your business relies on partners, whether they're reseller partners or distribution partners, Salesforce has an option for that as well, as we've seen, so a more B2C tailored type of community. And the benefits really should be quite straightforward even. So if you enable your partners to have direct access to your CRM and logging their own leads, their own opportunities, then obviously you should be able to close your deals faster and also close more deals because they have that access. But the access you're opening is also to your partner's expertise. If you have better informed partners with direct access to your experts or the information, the latest and greatest decks and product roadmaps or service roadmaps, then you have your feet on the street, that could be your partners, are much more aligned with your business objectives and can do that job a lot better. And you can also ensure that your partners are happy with the relationship that they have with you because you're being more transparent by giving them access to your business and to your organization in general. So you can also ensure that they have a healthy relationship with you by opening up this relationship. And to talk you through an example of a partner community, we're going to use the implementation we did for the Youth Business International. And for those of you who don't know this organization, they are a non-for-profit organization. They're part of the Prince's Trust, and they do an amazing job around the world. They're headquartered in the UK, but they have memberships around the world. So they build these partnerships with local entities in countries to help young people start and grow their businesses. So they provide them with some capital, so they invest in young people who have business ideas, but they don't just give them money and wish them good luck. No, their job goes much deeper. They give them what they call a mini MBA style program, and they assign them with a mentor. And these mentors could be someone who has already done a similar type of business initiative elsewhere, and they put these people in touch, regardless of where they are located, so that they share that business acumen and that experience, so that they can thrive, so that the capital that is given by the organization is then put to the best of its use, and these young people with business ideas have the most chances to perform and to excel in their business. And if we could look at their numbers for 2012, we can see that they trained almost 200,000 young people. So we're talking about a charity here who is enabling all these young people to get access to training that without them, they probably wouldn't have had the chance to. As you can see in the dots on the map on the top, they work in some less favored areas, and also in Europe and the US, so that people who are growing these businesses have access to the best of knowledge they could have. And they helped started almost 15,000 businesses just in 1 year, which is tremendous. It's a tremendous impact for people's lives and for the countries as well. They're, as I was saying, they're headquartered in the UK, in London. And actually, the reason for communities came from the headquarters because they needed a platform that enabled all these people to perform their mentorship, to share knowledge, share their business acumen with each other, and also locate the right expert to help each other. Because if I have a business to start a coffee company, for example, then I'm going to need a very specific type of acumen. And what the YBI wanted to do is to help people find the right people across all these experts and mentors they have in their members. So they have this objective, generically, of creating a platform for collaboration. But actually, what the key motivator to start a Salesforce community came from actually an in-person, so a non-virtual collaboration event that they hosted in London in September last year. So they got 200 members together from the 40 countries where they have a presence together for 1 week in London. So they wanted to make the most of this event. They wanted the attendees to get to network as much as possible, to get as much information as possible, and to learn from each other. So before the community, they thought, before the event, they thought, let's start a community. Let's use this as a creating moment to help, because people will need to network. They will need to find out what the agenda is. They will need to find out each of the tracks that they're going to attend, and they'll want to network. So this was the foundation for the community that is still alive and thriving, and they have lots of plans for the future. During the event, they identified 3 key challenges. So how are they going to make this experience a unique and the best experience they could possibly have? As you can imagine, it's not easy to bring together 200 members of a non-for-profit organization from around the world. So this doesn't happen very often. So it really needed to be a key event and unique. So how are they going to make this experience the most rich as they could have? And then how are they going to benefit from the learnings and pass on to the others who didn't come to the event, to all the young people that they're supporting in their countries? So how are they going to share there's 5 tracks? Each person could only attend one at any one time. So how are we going to go beyond the physical experience of sitting through a learning track? And then how are they going to communicate even on a day-to-day basis during those 4 days? There's a lot of logistics of moving 200 people around in London. So they were obviously staying in different hotels. So how are we going to manage that? Sending an email out to 200 people all the time just didn't seem like the right choice. So this really crystallized their long-term vision into quite a tactical event, but it got them launched, and it was a tremendous success. As Bash was saying, Communities is very configurable and customizable. So we created a homepage for them that would give them an immediate understanding of what was required from their experience in the community. So there was the 3 steps that they had to do. So a clear call to action on what was needed from them. On the left there, you can see there were some key announcements. They also integrated, as you can see on the right, with their Twitter feed, because it was a live event. There was a big call to action as well to promote this gathering. And on the bottom, you can see that there was 5 key groups that they wanted to attract users for. So this homepage was really tailored for that event, and now it's evolved to become a more day-to-day type of community. In addition, I mentioned that one of their key objectives was to connect the right people with the right skills available in the organization. So we helped them tailor the profile or the people object within Chatter by allowing them to specify which track they would be attending within those 4 days, what was their member country, and just put it on an easier to search display to make sure that those connections were established while they were attending the event, and that they followed each other on Chatter to promote the continued networking process after the event was finished. Chatter is obviously the key and the basis to something like this when we're talking about networking and sharing experiences. So they put together a rollout and a communications plan that was focused on share as much as you can about your experiences, and anything that can benefit more than one person, then just share it on Chatter, because surely sooner or later it will be useful to someone. And also they had some videos that they wanted to share, and they wanted it to be quite easy to access without having to download. So we just created a quick and easy page for them to share their videos. There was an awards ceremony at the end, and they were actually playing the videos from within the community, which was again making the place of that community within the organization quite fundamental, and passing on the message that this is our platform for collaboration. This is our opportunity to stay in touch after this event. So they had some ambitious targets for logging in and posting in the community. So they had an actual of 60% login and post, which is still very good if we consider that it was all done in quite a short time before the event, and there should have been more communication. So everyone was quite pleased. And also, the most important thing for them was that having this community transformed how people saw the event and gave them the possibility of then continuing the experience they had in person for a much longer time. And what we'd like to share with you now is just some considerations. If you are thinking of implementing a community, what should you do? What do you need to think about before you do that? So I'm going to hand over to Bash to talk about this.
Thanks for that, Lily. So as Lily mentioned, I'm going to just cover a few different considerations that you should think about before implementing Salesforce Communities. As we covered in both partner and customer communities, there's a lot of functionality that can be made available through Salesforce Communities. So one of the first questions you need to ask yourself is, what is the purpose of me implementing this community? And distilling down from that is, what functionality should be made accessible through the community? In terms of functionality for a customer community, we covered a few key areas which span mainly across networking and this sort of social hub that creates this feedback loop between your customers and yourself. But also there were cases, so individual case management. Customers can manage their own cases, being able to access knowledge about your products, and then Q&A, so customers can interact with one another with questions and answers. So when asking your question, what is the purpose of this community? You really need to think about what is the functionality. So do I want my customers to be able to access Q&A? Do I want a forum? Do I want my customers accessing knowledge? Most likely, if it's a customer community, mainly knowledge and case management, it's probably the most popular that you're going to see implemented. So the answer to those will probably be yes. If it's a partner community, do you want your users to be able to edit knowledge? Do you want them to have access to reports and dashboards and be able to customize those reports and dashboards? So really it starts with the question of what the purpose is, which is really the question you should be asking if you're starting any type of project. Next consideration that you should take into account are the groups of users that should be using this. Instead of rolling out a customer community to all of your customers, it may simply be a subset of these customers. It may be simply the set of customers that have a higher tier of service that have access to this community. Again, the customer community has up to 5 million users. If you're a business that has 20 or 30 million customers, it might just be the top 5 million that are able to have access to this community. If it's a partner community, it might just be certain dealers. If you're car manufacturers, for example, that have access to the partner community. Next, if you're using cases, there's some internal considerations to your internal Salesforce environment that you need to consider. Is case manage really set up properly before you roll it out externally to allow users to set up their own cases? Are your SLAs, service level agreements, set up in a way that customers can easily understand? Are they aware of these considerations, of these limitations, or of this functionality that you're rolling out? Is knowledge consistently maintained? So if you're going to be using knowledge within your community, do you have internal users that are in charge of maintaining this knowledge? One of the worst things you can do is probably roll out a community and with the promise of having a more engaging experience for your customers, and then serve them old knowledge that's not really heavily maintained. One of the biggest values of having a customer community especially is having that loop of information that your customers are feeding to you and having them consistently telling you what information they want. If they're telling you what information they want, they're not being served up-to-date information, the experience can grow stale over time. So you want to ensure that your knowledge is being maintained. Do you want to go with a fully custom design and a fully custom coded interface, or do you want to use the standard branding functionality that comes with a community? As we mentioned before, community branding can be set up very quickly, and it's easily configurable from within Salesforce. But if you want to go with a full-out custom experience, it might take a little bit of time a little bit more time to implement that. So you consider what is the value of fully branding this? Do I want to go with a minimally branded or a fully custom experience and fully custom logic for my users? So these are some of the things that you should consider. Obviously, there's more, but these are some of the most important questions you should ask yourself and make sure that you have strategies for them before you start rolling out communities. One question that a lot of our customers get and that you see when people are implementing communities is, what if I already have a customer portal? What if I already have a partner portal? How can I migrate my functionality from this existing portal to this customer community? So some of the things that you should consider that you need to look out for is that you need to prepare a very strong use case to ensure that your community delivers the most value to your business. So what I mean when I say that is sort of harken back to the considerations that I mentioned in the past slide. What types of users will be using this? What are the individual groups? And what processes and what steps do I want these customers or these partners to go through to deliver the most value to my business? If that's a partner, the most value is probably being able to see what that partner's performance is and to be able to compare it with other partners that are selling my products. If it's a customer, I'd like information from my customers about what pains they're having and what type of knowledge I can provide to them so they have the best possible experience with my product. You want to analyze and enable your current code base for community compatibility. Um, and normally that's not a big problem at all. It's normally not a problem. But what I mean there is ensuring that if you have existing business logic that's working internally or working within your existing portals, you want to check that it's working just as it would um, otherwise within this community. So it's just updating business logic within Salesforce, updating your code base to work flawlessly within the community. Normally it's not a problem, but you just want to test and make sure that it works. Again, there's custom branding. So communities allow you to brand this experience unlike ever before with a customer or a partner portal. It's either easily configurable or you can go all out and use custom code to in Visualforce to custom brand this community, to customize the design. And lastly, but almost probably the most important, you want to develop an adoption plan to ensure a smooth internal rollout. So internally, if you're using a partner portal, the way you interact with your partners or with your customers can completely change with communities. Again, partner portals didn't have chatter implemented at all, and this allows you to speak directly with your partners or directly with your customers through the community. And if they have a question, you're able to respond in a more efficient and collaborative manner. And additionally, I would say, in addition to this, you want to have an adoption plan to ensure that your customers are having a smooth transition. This can include external marketing to your customers, letting them know that the experience of how they interact will change, letting your customers know that they can now log and track cases with your company through this new community, and that they can find knowledge to help them serve themselves all through this Salesforce tool. So next, I'm going to pass it off to Lily to explain how you can ensure success for engaging communities.
Great. So this next and final section of our webinar today is really focused to help you understand what we think are the 5 key areas to ensure that you have a highly adopted and engaging community. So you can have the best technical implementation of communities. We've seen that it's not hard, you can brand it, but how are you going to even go past the login barrier, for example? How do you keep your customers coming back to your community? So we've identified, with our experience, 5 key areas. So starting with the end in sight, which means identifying the objectives, the purpose of this community for you and your customers, and so how you're going to measure the success. Secondly, we'll talk about the role of a community manager and how important it is to ensure that your community is delivering the utmost value. Thirdly, we'll touch on providing unique and valuable interactions to your customers and partners, so your community users, and just making sure that what people go to your community for, they couldn't find anywhere else, so that they keep coming back for that. And then touching a little bit on usability, so steps 4 and 5, so really making it engaging and fun to use and easy as well, taking the example of consumer world applications that don't come with manuals and implementation guides. Everyone knows instinctively how to use them. And then also making it available on mobile, as that's key, as we all know by now. So the first step, what sort of value can you define for yourselves, for your community? How are you going to measure the success of that community? So we've seen that you can use cases, for example. You can open up your opportunity process so that partners can log their opportunities straight onto your platform. So can you expect to deflect calls from your support system? Because people will be finding their own answers, or the community will be providing them with the answers they need. Your partners will be doing a lot of the work in terms of logging those leads and opportunities. They'll be better informed, as we know. And you can expect as well to increase referrals with having customer-to-customer recommendations. Your innovation pace should be faster because you're tapping directly onto the source. So the people who buy your products, they're your best advisors to tell you where to go with your roadmap of products. So these are just some of the some ideas of how you can measure the success of your community, but it all depends on the purpose of that community as well. So what are you trying to achieve with that community? But our key message with this first step is understand what are you delivering with your community, and then make sure that you always ask the question, how are we going to measure it? And define that from the onset, so that you can always report on the ROI of the community. Because like everything else, it is an investment. It will bring value if it's well implemented and well strategized and within your business. But always think yourself, how am I going to measure the success of the community I'm about to build? The community manager, now I don't mean that you have to employ someone to manage your community, depends on the size of the community. And to give you an example, the success.salesforce.com community, which Ian actually mentioned at the beginning, I think it has registered already over 1 million users, but we know that Salesforce only employs 4 people to maintain that community. So if you think of that ratio, 1 million customers and partners to 4 people employed to maintain it, that's very good, right? Because most communities won't be that large. So it could be a few hours of someone's role, it could be a dedicated person, depends again on the purpose of the community, the size of it, but some of the activities that you'll want to ensure get done so that your community doesn't go through an implementation process that can actually turn out to be a very solid technical platform, but then doesn't get used. So your community manager will ensure that the platform is suited to the needs of their users. So all the objects you've got there, all the functionality is serving what people need to do, and all the content is up to date. You can then report on adoption of the community, on leads generated, etc., so that the business can keep track of that ROI. And also ensure that there's some moderation and rule enforcement, and just to make sure that nobody is going past any boundaries that you may not want to have in your customer or partner community as well. And also make sure that the conversation is always fresh and keeps going. So engage directly, so the community manager would engage directly with community users to ask them questions, connect them as well. So a community manager should be a natural connector and a natural networker, so they can spot who can help each other, because that is the value of the community. The community shouldn't just be a mechanism for you to talk to customers or partners. It should be for them to talk among themselves. That's when you start to get the true value of a platform like this. And talking about value, so what is your community going to provide the users with that is fundamental for them, that is really transformational into how they perceive and experience your organization? And these again are just some ideas. So are you going to save them time? So it's easier for them to go to your community than anywhere else, and that makes it faster for them to obtain answers to their questions or to execute the process that you need them to. So if you work with a partner and they're partners of other organizations as well, then you can differentiate yourselves from your potential competitors by giving a platform for your partners to do business with you quicker, which can keep them coming back, increase that satisfaction we were talking about before. And also share more from your roadmap, from your internal R&D, if you're a product company, and open those gates, because people do like to feel that they're part of the brand. They're not just being sold to, and they are part of the whole experience. So give them access to that transparency. And also empower new connections, as we were saying before. So your customers and partners can be your evangelists and people that advocate the experience they've had with your organization through this community. So enable them to talk to each other as much as possible. And make sure that it's easy to use so that they keep coming back. We've got very high expectations. We've got a number of mobile applications on our smartphones that look and feel very good. We're used to not having to go through manuals and implementation guides. We just use it and we instinctively know how to use an application. So that comes from a very easy to use user interface. But also you can use some gamification. So sorry, it's a big word there, but really it's about motivating people through giving them points. So driving the behavior you want, which could be answering more questions on the community, for example. Let's take that one because it's easy to grasp. And allow people to be recognized through a point system, or by giving them a voucher for something, or by inviting them to your company, even if you're that open. So reward people openly in the community when they do something that you want to see rewarded, which in our example is just to answer more questions. And just a couple of examples of both, so gamification and an engaging user interface. So if we look at this, it was an old project that we've done with a customer a couple of years ago. This is a recruitment company that struggled to keep their salespeople updating their contacts and the data within Salesforce. So what we did was to create a point system that would reward users when they logged the most information in the system. So traditionally, salespeople don't necessarily like to share their contacts and information they have about those contacts. They keep it in a little black book. And there was no training program. There was no angry CEO email that would change their behavior. They just weren't logging that data in the system. So by putting the focus on them, on the actual salespeople, and turning it into a competition between themselves and between teams, then all of a sudden they could see that they could be rewarded publicly. And the reward was simply a badge, as we can see here. But it would give them that sense of, I'm going to enter this data points in the contact page, and then I'm going to add to my points, which means I'm going to have more points than this other guy in the other team, or even in my team. So it's just a fun way to motivate people to actually carry the behavior that we want them to. And in terms of user interface, so it really is important that people know what they're doing in the application, so or in the community. So give them a call to action. I mean, these are screenshots of an application we've delivered recently for a customer, where we integrated with calendars, with Google Maps. But if you even think about LinkedIn and how they make it so compelling for us to keep on coming back and adding more information about ourselves, I don't think anybody have ever got to the 100% profile completion within LinkedIn, because they just keep on adding more and more factors. The more data they know about you, then the better it is for them, because they can put your profile in front of recruiters, etc. So it's really keep people coming back by using the flexibility of the platform to drive that behavior. And finally, mobile. So we don't even talk about mobile here to say that your community needs to be available on mobile. It's really about thinking, so we take that for granted. What we want to prompt you to think here about is what is the experience that you're going to provide on a desktop? Because there's certain activities that are more prone to be done when I'm sitting at my desk and say, okay, I'm going to log that formal complaint or that query, or I'm going to log an opportunity in the partner community. But if you're on the go, you will still may have a need to interact with the community, but it will be a different need. It wouldn't be a formal process necessarily. So it will be asking a question or just checking very quickly on a knowledge article, for example, an answer to a question that you may have before heading out to a meeting. And you just want to be sure that you're going to say the right thing. So it really is about, yes, of course, mobile, but what is the experience and what are the activities that your users will need to perform on the different devices. So just planning from the onset for that. It doesn't mean that you have to release all the functionality you have in the community and making it fit into a smartphone screen. It's just be selective about the functionality that you enable on each device. So with that, we come to the end of our webinar. I think we're going to open for questions now, if there are any.
Thank you very much, Lily. Thanks, Bash. Great job. We have one question which has been pushed through so far. It's been touched on already around a portal to communities migration. The question is something that is still not, and this was asked actually before the slide was presented on portals, so it may have been partially answered, but something that is not clear to me still is how to transition from a customer portal to Salesforce Communities easily. So maybe you could talk just briefly to kind of effort levels involved, and in addition to what you said earlier, any kind of key things to think about around making that transition as smoothly as possible.
Yeah,
Sure.
absolutely. So, yeah, one of the biggest things you need to think about and to consider when transitioning from a customer portal to a community is, again, how is this going to change your internal processes? If you're making chatter available through that community, that's going to be probably the largest transition for you, is explaining to your internal workforce how to interact differently with your customers or interact differently with your partners. Because what that will enable is your customers being able to, or partners being able to directly ask questions throughout that social platform, which is something that wasn't available within customer portals or partner portals. So instead of waiting for information to be put into Salesforce and then auditing that information and then getting back to your customers or back to your partners based on that information that's in Salesforce, they'll be directly asking questions. So you'll be monitoring the information a little bit differently. Secondly, it's the overall implementation of the community itself. So you have to decide what features are going to be made available because there is a larger feature set. And you have to consider what branding will be done to it, since you can brand a community, and before you couldn't brand a portal. The third thing I would say to consider um, is just external marketing to your partners or to your customers itself, letting them know that the process of how they interact and how they ask questions and how they manage cases will be different. So there's three things: there's marketing, there's internal processes, and there's the overall design of it. But mainly it's internally it's managing your employees and how your workforce will be interacting differently with the customers or the partners themselves. Lily, did you have anything
So I
you wanted
think
to add?
we have. I think we have no more questions now, guys, and we are bang on 11 o'clock. So I think at that point we will close the webinar. Thank you everybody for attending. Please provide feedback through the community. Any ongoing questions, please post those in the community. Lily and Bash are both members, so we'd be able to jump in and answer those. Next one of these webinars is going to be in a month's time. We'll be posting details shortly, so hopefully we'll see you there, and thank you for attending today.